Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to our Chaitanya Caritamrta class. We'll begin with our prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuro Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नितिनामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna, welcome everyone. We are continuing our discussion from Chaitanya Caritamrta, Madhya Lila. We are in chapter 19. Lord Chaitanya instructs Rupa Goswami. In this chapter, we have heard Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is in Prayag. Rup Sanatan Goswami, they leave the service of Nawab Hussain Shah. Rup Goswami leaves early. Later, Sanatan Goswami also comes. Rupa and Anupam, they go and meet Lord Chaitanya. There is a discussion between Vallabh Bhatt and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Vallabh Bhatt takes him to his native place, Adaila Gram, brings him back. Then we heard the wonderful discussion of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with Raghupati Upadhyay, one of the very great devotees. He recited some beautiful verses. Mahaprabhu was completely overwhelmed. Then Vallabh Bhatta brings Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu back to Prayag. There, Rupa Goswami and Anupam, they meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Kavi Karnapur describes the wonderful mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Rupa Sanatan. कालेन वृंदावन केली वार्ता लुप्ते तितां ख्यापयितुं विशिष्य कृपामृतेनाभिषिषे च देवं तत्रैव रूपं च सनातनं च. In due course of time, the pastimes of Vrindavan were lost. Lupteti. So, to again describe those pastimes, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he empowered, he sprinkled his mercy. Kripa amritena abhishishecha. He sprinkled his mercy on Rup and Sanatan Goswami. Wonderful glorious qualities of Rup and Sanatan Goswami are described, how they would live under each and every tree, every night. Ek vrish tale, ek ratri shayan. He would eat sometimes. They would not eat for days, absorbed in bhajan. They would sleep only 1.5, 2 hours. Sometimes that was also not there, completely absorbed in writing, hearing, and thinking about the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in this way, Rupa Goswami was completely empowered. Rupa Goswami, he met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Prayag. He explained Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he taught wonderful lessons. Those teachings, they form the basis of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Last time we heard Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describing the rarity and the glory of a devotee of Krishna, how rare it was. Out of millions of jivas, very few gets human birth. And out of those, very few they actual become followers of Vedas. And out of those who follow the Vedas, very few actually they live a sinless life. Karmanishta. Out of those who are Karmanishta, very few they become jnanis, they become wise. Out of many wise people, Muktanam Visiddhanam, out of many jnanis, one becomes Mukta. And out of many, many Muktas, one become a devotee of Lord Narayan. Muktanam Visiddhanam Narayan Parayana Sudurlabha Prashantatma Kotishwapi Mahamule. So now we'll begin with from verse number 151. This is another very wonderful section from verse 151 to 165. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is going to describe the process of cultivating Krishna Bhakti. Very, very important lessons. The lessons on how our Bhakti Lata Beej grows. The growth of the devotional creeper is described very beautifully in this section. Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasade Paye Bhakti Lata Beej. Very famous verse we have heard hundreds of times maybe. Brahmanda Brahmite, according to their karma, all the living entities are wandering throughout the universe, sometimes upper, sometimes middle, sometimes lower. Who is fortunate? Kona Bhagyavan? Guru Krishna Kripaye Paye. One who gets an opportunity to associate with a bona fide spiritual master, and by the mercy of Krishna and by the mercy of spiritual master, one gets the seed of devotional service. Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Beej. So Prabhupada writes, elaborate purport here. He describes there are innumerable living entities in water, on the land, moving, non-moving, and they're just engaged in enjoying and suffering the results of their sinful activities. Out of many, many millions of souls, one who is Bhagyavan, he gets the mercy of spiritual master. Not everyone gets. And only by the mercy of Krishna, one gets the mercy of the association of spiritual master. Prabhupada writes, if a living entity is by chance or fortune comes in contact with Krishna consciousness movement and wishes to associate with this movement, then Krishna, who is there in everyone's heart, gives him a chance to associate with a bona fide spiritual master. That is called as Guru Krishna Prasad. It all begins with some by chance or some fortune. Of course, that fortune is also created by devotees only. Or if by chance this living entity glorifies any aspect of devotee or devotional service. Oh, this temple is very nice. Prasad tastes very good. These devotees are nice. Or because of his, pious ways of living, he helps devotees. That is Agyata Sukriti. By some Agyata Sukriti, by some fortune or some chance, one desires Lord's mercy. Then Krishna, who is in the heart of that living entity, gives him chance to associate with a bona fide spiritual master. It doesn't happen automatically. He's helped from within by Krishna and from outside by a bona fide spiritual master. But it all begins by either Agyat Sukriti or by the mercy of the devotees. Of course, by Agyat Sukriti, one gets mercy of devotees only. Because Bhaktya Sanjayate Bhakti. Only a devotee can give devotion to somebody. So Krishna is really working hard to bring every living entity closer to him. Krishna is really working hard. Naivopayantyapachitiം kavayasthavesha ब्रह्मायुषापि कृतमृद्धमुदं स्मरन्तः अन्तर्बहिस्तनुभृताम् अशुभं विधुन्वन्नाचार्य चैत्यवपुषा स्वगतिं व्यनक्ति नैव upayanti apachitim. One can never express their gratitude sufficiently. Kavayastavesha, even if somebody is a great poet. Brahma Ayusha api, even if somebody has a life of Brahma, Brahma's life, great poet, still they can't express what the Lord is doing for us. What is doing? What is he doing for us? Antarbahisthanuvritam ashubham vidhunvan. From inside and outside, he is destroying all the inauspiciousness from the lives of living entities, from his devotees. How? Acharya Chaityavapusha. From outside, he is working as Acharya, the spiritual master. And from inside, he is working as Chaityavapusha, as Paramatma in the heart. Prabhupada gives the example of the Narada boy in the past life when the Narada Muni was a small boy, son of a maid servant. How by the association of the devotees he became such a great personality. उच्छिष्टलेपाननुमोदितो द्विजै सकृत्स्मपुञ्जे तदपास्तकिल्बिषै एवं प्रवृत्तस्य विशुद्धचेतसस्तद्धर्म एवात्मरुचि प्रजायते. Because he was associating with these Bhaktivedantis, serving them, taking their remnants by their permission, all his sins were purified. Sakrat Smabhunje, only once he took the remnants. The remnants of the great devotees are so powerful. One time taking Maha of the devotees is purifying. One time, one devotee was sharing his book distribution story. And he was telling that I met, there was uh, one time. So one time Prabhupada's servant was telling this story, what happened. Prabhupada was on a flight and Prabhupada told his servant, do you have something to eat? So he had puffed rice. So he gave puffed rice. Prabhupada was eating. He ate few palmfuls. The air hostess, she passed by and she looked. And then after taking for, few palmfuls of puffed rice, Prabhupada gave remaining to the servant, Shrutakirti Prabhu. And this lady, she was amused to see this puffed rice. Without even asking, she just put her hand and, grabbed one palmful and put in the mouth, put in her mouth. And she was so very happy eating that. She was so very touched by Srila Prabhupada. She said, can I help you? Can I serve you anything? So Shrutikirti Prabhu asked Prabhupada, Prabhupada, she's asking if you want something. Prabhupada said, yes, if we can get hot milk. So Prabhupada told Shrutikirti Prabhu and Shrutikirti Prabhu told this air hostess, can you please get hot milk? And within a few minutes, she got hot milk for Prabhupada. She got Mahaprasad of Srila Prabhupada and she served Srila Prabhupada. So Shrutikirti Prabhu tells this story. He tells that once I was telling this to some of the devotees, and one person, and this is like after many years, one devotee who was doing book distribution in Mexico. This is the story of Mexico. This air hostess was from Mexico. So this book distributor, he told Shrutikirti Prabhu, do you know what happened later? He said once he was doing book distribution in the interior villages of Mexico. He knocked at one door and a lady opened the door. She had Kantimala. She had Tilak. She was surprised. How come there is a devotee in such an interior part of Mexico? She called the devotee inside. She saw there is an altar of Gaur Nitai there. He saw that. I was amazed. He asked, how did you become devotee? So she said, many years back, when Srila Prabhupada was on the flight, and I was there hostess, I took Mahaprasad of Srila Prabhupada, puffed rice, and I served a little bit. That is the power of Mahaprasad, Mahaprasad. So Prabhupada writes about that story. By the mercy of spiritual master, one advances in bhakti. Prabhupada writes, following in the footsteps of Narad Muni, and this Krishna consciousness movement is rendering service to humanity by giving everyone a chance to come close to Krishna. Because love of God is there in everyone's heart. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem Sadhya Kapunoe Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Karaye Uday. One associates with devotees, one gets a chance to chant and hear, love of God arises. So this Bhakti Lata Beej, which one receives by Guru Krishna Prasad, what one has to do with that Bhakti Lata Beej? Mali hoya kore se bij aropan. Shravana Kirtana Jale Koroe Sinchan. Okay, now you have this Bhakti Lata Beej. What do you have to do with that? Mali Hoya, just like a gardener, become a gardener. And Bij Aropan, sow the seed in your heart. Mali Hoya Bij Kare Se Bij Aropan. So when a person receives the seed of devotional service, he should take care of it. Become the gardener. Sow that seed in your heart. And then you have to water that seed. How to water the seed? Shravana Kirtana Jale Karai Sinchan. Water the seed with the waters of hearing and chanting. Prabhupada writes, to live with devotees or to live in temple means associate with Shravan and Kirtan. That is very important. Prabhupada tells this Nirjan Bhajan is not for neophyte devotees. Oh, I'll stay in secluded place and I'll chant. I don't need devotees. No. Only a great devotee like Haridas Thakur could chant alone, not for everyone. And devotees, they should do deity worship also. That's why Srila Prabhupada has given this Pancharatra Vidhi, the deity worship, and Bhagavati Vidhi both. Because we cannot just do chanting whole day. We are not at that level. So just to give some other engagement to our mind, and that is a very quick process of purification to engage in deity worship. Prabhupada writes, Guru Prasad indicates that the spiritual master is very merciful in bestowing the boon of devotional service. That is Guru Prasad. So spiritual masters are always eager. And that is the best gift the spiritual master has to offer. Because of the sukritis of the past life, one gets association of devotees again. And then, when one comes in association of devotees, Guru Kripa starts working. What is Guru Kripa? Spiritual master trains the devotee in the various aspects of devotional service. That is Guru Kripa. Prabhupada writes, what is this Bhakti Lata Beej all about? In the seed of devotional service, what is it exactly? Prabhupada gives a very, very wonderful definition of what is Bhakti Lata Beej. Nothing vague, no abstract. The methods, rules, and regulations by which one is perfectly trained in devotional service constitutes Bhakti Lata Beej. The methods, rules, and regulations by which one is perfectly trained in devotional service constitutes Bhakti Lata Beej. So Bhakti Lata Beej is received from spiritual master. All our teachers, they teach us what are the methods, what are the rules, regulations. Only a devotee can give this Bhakti Lata Beej. If we associate with other people, karmis, jnanis, will get karma beej, jnana beej. Prabhupada writes about that. And Bhaktilata Bij is different from all these Karma Bij and Jnana Bij. Bhaktilata Bij can be received only through a devotee or spiritual master, not from anyone else. A karmi can never give Bhaktilata Bij. A jnani can never give Bhaktilata Bij. And therefore, because we have received this Bhaktilata Bij from spiritual master, one has to satisfy the spiritual master to get that Bhaktilata Bij. In the beginning, Bhaktilata Bij is given. Some methods and rules are taught, but the more one satisfies the Guru, the more one gets Bhaktilata Bij. And Bhaktilata Bij, it is the origin of devotional service. Because if one doesn't have this, it will not grow into the very flourishing creeper of Bhaktilata. It will not bear the fruits of love of God. And then Prabhupada writes, one who has not properly heard from spiritual master, one who does not follow the principles, they are not fit for chanting. If one is not following principles, the chanting is of no use. We should be very, very focused in following the principles. Vyavasaya Atmika Buddhi Ekeha Kurunandana. One who has not listened carefully, one who is not following the principles carefully, they cannot chant, they cannot preach. That is natural. If I am not practicing something, how can I tell somebody to do that? But, and then what happens? Now one has sown this Bhaktirata Bij in his heart, watered it with Shravan and Kirtan. Keep watering. Watering doesn't stop anytime. Upajiya Badilata Brahmanda Bhedi Jaye Viraja Brahma Loka Bhedi Tvara Vyomapai. Now this Bhaktilata is growing. This creeper is growing. And this creeper has the power to pierce the coverings of the universe. Brahmanda Bhediya. Coverings of the universe are not some thin coverings. They are the thickest of the coverings. But Bhaktilata is powerful enough. It is a lata. Prabhupada writes, generally, a creeper needs to take shelter of a tree because the creeper can't grow on its own. But this Bhakti Lata is different type of Lata. It is very powerful because it is not a material Lata. Bhakti is spiritual. Bhakti is apratihata. Bhakti is independent. Bhakti is not dependent on anything of this world. It is completely spiritual. It can pierce all the coverings of the universe. Viraja, Brahma, Loka, Bhedi pierces the coverings, crosses the Viraja river, crosses the Brahma Jyoti. Brahma Loka means Brahma Jyoti, and attains the Paravyom, reaches the spiritual world, Vaikuntha or Goloka. Prabhupada writes, devotional service should not be utilized for anything material. In fact, devotional service means spiritual only. Devotional service, this word is only used for Krishna, nothing, nobody else. There is nothing called as Desha Bhakti or Devata Bhakti. Bhakti is only for Krishna because whenever Bhakti is there, that means Anya Abhilashita Shunyam. No other desires. But Devata Bhakti means I worship Devata to get material things. I am Indian because I get so many facilities from this country. So devotional service is specially meant for Supreme Personality. Prabhupada writes, Viraja, V means Vigata. Vigata means completely eradicated. Raja means material modes. So beyond this material world is Viraja, where there is no presence of the material modes. And this Bhakti Lata, it has no shelter in this material world. It is spiritual. How can a spiritual thing take shelter of something material? So this Bhaktilata keeps growing. Tabe aaye tadupari golok Vrindavan Krishna charana kalpavrikshe kare arohan. Now, in the spiritual world, Paravyom, there are many, many millions of Vaikuntha planets. This Bhaktilata crosses all those planets also and ultimately reaches Goloka Vrindavan. And in that Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna Charana Kalpa Vriksha Korearo. Ultimately, this Bhakti creeper, Bhaktilata, takes shelter of the lotus feet, the Kalpa Vriksha of the Krishna's lotus feet. Krishna's lotus feet is Kalpa Vriksha, desire fulfilling trees. Krishna's lotus feet, they can fulfill all the spiritual desires and purify all our material desires. That is the spiritual world. That is the lotus feet of Krishna. So this Tilata is growing, slowly crosses all the coverings and crosses Viraja, crosses all the way and enters Vaikuntha planets and ultimately reaches Goloka. Prabhupada in the purport describes this Goloka. आनंद चिन्मय रस प्रतिभाविताभि ताभिर्य एव निज रूपतया कलाभि गोलोक एव निवसत्य किलात्म भूतो गोविंदमादि पुरुषं तमहं भजामि. Prabhupada writes, what is this Goloka? It is Chinmay, Ananda Chinmay Ras. Ananda Chinmay Ras means the spiritual world is made up of Satchidananda. There is nothing material in the spiritual world. It is all full of bliss, eternal, full of knowledge. There are so many rasas, but there is Chinmay Ras. What is this Chinmay Ras? Chinmay Ras is the relationship between Krishna and the devotee of master and servant. That is Chinmay Ras. There are many rasas. Prabhupada writes about 5 rasas. And the devotees in different rasas, they worship the Lord, serve the Lord in Goloka Vrindavan. Taha vistarit hoya phale prem phal, iha mali siche nitya shavrana dijal. Now something very important is coming. This Bhakti Lata creeper has reached Goloka. The devotee is still in the material world. Devotee has not gone yet. The devotee has become purified. Bhakti Lata creeper has reached Goloka. And there, what happens? Taha vistarite. The creeper expands everywhere. It is growing luxuriantly. And then this creeper starts bearing fruits of love of God. Prem phal. A devotee, although remaining in this material world, one should sinche nitya. One should never feel, now I have become completely purified. Now I don't need all this Shravana Kirtan. Now I can become relaxed. No. Prabhupada writes, a neophyte devotee doesn't understand this. A careless devotee, if he stops hearing and chanting, then one will again come down. Prabhupada writes, the fruit of devotional service is a pure desire to serve and please the Supreme God. What is this prem phal? If somebody gets the prem phal, that means the desire to serve and please the Lord has appeared without any ulterior motives. Krishnendriya priticha dhare premanam atmendriya pritivancha tare bolikam. A pure devotee has no desire but to serve the Lord. That is Krishnendriya priticha. That is love. In this world, there is no love, there is only lust. Because everyone loves somebody to get something in return. There is no selfless love. Prabhupada would tell that the closest semblance of pure love this love of mother for the child. But in spiritual world, everybody has pure love. No desire other than serving the Lord. And conditioned souls, they can't understand all this. How can somebody serve without any motive? If you are not getting anything material in return, why will you serve? The materialistic can't understand all that. So devotee, although he is in material world, he continues to serve the Lord. He's now purified. He is a bhav bhakta or prem bhakta. When the creeper reaches spiritual world, that means bhav or prema. But even at the level of bhava, there are two types of duties of this bhav bhakta. Externally, he keeps on practicing the rules and regulations of a sadhaka bhakta. Seva sadhaka rupena siddha rupena chatrahi brajalo tad bhav lipsuna karya brajalokanusaratah. Externally, he continues to perform his regulative principles, seva sadhaka rupa. But in the inside world, siddha rupena, he meditates on his relation with the Supreme Lord in a particular mellow. He follows Brajabhava. He follows the devotees in that bhava, in the heart. Externally, he remains like a simple sadhaka. But, Prabhupada writes, it is the duty of the devotee who nourishes the creeper to be very careful. One should never ever stop watering. Sinche nitya. Continue watering with this Shravan and Kirtan. It should never be stopped. There is never a stage when one can stop hearing and chanting, otherwise, one will fall down again. If the watering is stopped, then the creeper will dry up. However exalted one may be, association, hearing and chanting should go on. And then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gives another very grave warning. He says, if one gives up the process, in which situation a person gives up this hearing and chanting? If he offends, if he makes offenses, he describes the impediments in the growth of this bhakti lata. What are the impediments? Offenses and the weeds. They are two very, very powerful impediments. Yadi Vaishnava Parada Uthe Hati Mata Upade Vachinde Tara Sukhi Jaye Pata. Yadi Vaishnava Parad Uthe Hati Mata. Mata Hati means a mad elephant. Mata, mad elephant. Over years and years, if somebody puts hard work in growing a beautiful garden full of flowers, fragrant flowers, the trees which are giving nice sweet fruits. It takes years and years of hard work to grow such a wonderful garden. Every day watering, every day uprooting the weeds, trimming the tree in certain ways, protecting from the animals, such hard work. Allow one mad elephant to enter that garden. Upade wa chinde aaye sukhi aayi pata. This mad elephant will either uproot it or it will break it. And the entire creeper will dry up. Prabhupada writes, one's devotional attitude increases in association of a devotee. One should be very careful to be in a right attitude in association of devotees. If one is not careful, then one makes offenses. Prabhupada writes, one who is actually serious about advancing in devotional service should desire only to satisfy previous acharyas. Tandera charana se bhakta sanivas. Associate with devotees, serve the previous acharyas, follow their instructions, And one should always feel I am servant of the servant of the servant of previous acharyas. I have nothing. And if somebody thinks, well, I'm mature enough, I don't need association of devotees now, I'll take a break. Very dangerous. One will fall down. Prabhupada writes, if one commits offenses, if one stops following regulative principles, if one lives according to one's own whims, these are all mad elephant offenses. This will uproot our Bhakti Rata creeper. And Prabhupada says the most, serious of all is disobeying the instructions of spiritual master. Gurur avagya. This especially creates this mata hati aparadha. So therefore, this devotee must create offense. One should not allow this mad elephant to enter the garden of our devotional service. What is this fence? This fence is the association of mature senior devotees. Prabhupada writes, one should be always surrounded by pure devotees. Pure devotees, yes, if one gets chance to associate with the devotees who are actually purified of all their anarthas, that is great. We may not get that association regularly, but we will always get association of devotees who have pure faith. Seek out that association. The devotees who have pure faith, they are very, very crucial. The devotees who are not depending on any other devtas, not following any other paths, not following any other Vedic rituals, only practice of bhakti. That is pure faith. One should associate with such devotees. So by following regulative principles, by associating with pure devotees, one can avoid this mad elephant offense. And then Prabhupada says, even if one thinks that there are pseudo devotees or there are non devotees in Krishna consciousness society, sometimes it happens. We see that how can this person be a devotee? He doesn't know how to behave, he doesn't know how to do seva properly. Prabhupada says, still one should stick to the society, never leave ISKCON. Prabhupada said, if you have problem with some devotees, neophyte devotees, not pure devotees, make relation and contact with the spiritual master. Ask questions, consult spiritual master. Of course, it will not happen that you will not find any, sincere devotee. In current scenario, association of spiritual master is not always possible. Seek out association of sincere devotees, pure devotees. Ask them, be with them, take shelter, guidance of them. Otherwise, if one is just doing mental concoctions, one falls down. Be very careful to avoid these 6 negative things: Satyahara, Prayashascha, Prajalpa, Niyamagraha, Janasangascha, Laulyamcha, Shadvir Bhakti Vinashyati. These are very, very dangerous, destroys our devotional service. Don't accumulate more than necessary. Don't over endeavor. Don't gossip about material things of the world. Don't do something just for the sake of doing it, or don't reject something because it is difficult. Don't associate with non devotees. Don't be greedy about the material things of the world. These are very, very dangerous. Shadvir Bhakti Vinashyati. So, one thing is Vaishnava Prant. Other thing is unwanted creepers. What are these unwanted creepers? Kintu yadi latar sanghe uthe upashakha bhukti mukti vanchayat asankhya taralekha. If the weeds they start growing along with the creeper, tilata creeper, this happens always. Whenever a seed is sown, as the seed is going, along with that, some weeds also grow. What are these weeds? Bhukti, mukti, vancha. Desire for sense gratification of this world or desire for liberation. And the varieties are unlimited. Now, how they will manifest, it is unlimited. Nobody can say, okay, bhukti means only this. They manifest in unlimited. Asankhya taralekha. Every mind has a different way of creating bhukti or mukti. He gives few examples of what are these creepers. Bhukti, mukti, asankhya. He gives few examples. Nishiddhachar, kutinati, jiva himsan, labh, puja, pratishtha, upashakhagan. Nishiddha achar. Doing something which is not acceptable, the behaviors which are not acceptable in devotee community, that is not following four regulative principles. They are Nishiddha Achar. Putinati. Putinati means diplomatic behavior. That is very, very deadly, Prabhupada. Mahaprabhu is telling. In our day-to-day activity, sometimes we use diplomacy to get things done, to do our services, but we should be very, very careful. Prabhupada writes, if we treat people diplomatically or duplicitously, our spiritual advancement will be obstructed. So we have to be very, very careful. Duplicity is not at all recommended. If we have to be duplicitous, it should be done with utmost care only in rare occasions. Otherwise, our devotional service will be obstructed. Prabhupada writes, it cannot satisfy the mind. It cannot satisfy the body. It cannot satisfy the senses. Duplicitous behavior. One should be very careful. And a person who behaves in a duplicitous way, he is himself always suspicious about others. Because world is a mirror of your own consciousness. I behave something with somebody in a wrong way, duplicitous way. I want to get things done, so I'll manipulate this person. I will always doubt somebody else that he may also be doing the same thing with me. So simple life is lost. And bhakti requires a simple heart. Bhakti doesn't grow in a heart which is crooked, duplicitous, diplomatic. One should be straightforward in one's dealings. That's why when it comes to being in a leadership position where one has to get things done, if we are not careful, we land up becoming diplomatic in our behavior. Unconsciously, involuntarily, we become diplomatic. And because, oh, I want to get things done, I want to do this seva, what can I do? But the problem is we are at loss. There is institutional success and there is personal success. The institution will be successful, but personally, we may not be able to grow in our bhakti. Our heart may become, crooked. So it is very, very important to cultivate a simple heart. Simplicity is very important. Then Prabhupada writes about Jiva Himsan. What is Jiva Himsan? He says three things are Jiva Himsan. First is directly killing. We may say, well, we have already stopped all that. But there are two more levels of Jiva Himsa. One is envy of any living entity. At any level is Jiva Himsa. And the highest level of envy is expressed when I kill you and eat you. Because envy means I can't tolerate you. I can't stand you. I can't see your progress. I can't see the way you are, except the way you are. And when this envy manifests in the physical way, jealousy. Either I'll speak about that person wrongly, or I'll do something just to bring him down, or the highest is I'll kill him. So Prabhupada writes, killing is undoubtedly due to envy. And third type of jiva himsa is if somebody is doing some religious propaganda, but they don't know the ultimate goal. They are just using some spiritual, sentiments of people to get name, fame, profit, money. That is jiva himsa. What they're doing is they're educating people to do more sense gratification. Because jiva himsa means I will become an obstacle in the progressive evolutionary path of a living entity. Because ultimately, a living entity should get liberated. But if one promotes sense gratification in the name of spirituality, that is a jiva himsan. You are obstructing their spiritual advancement. Prabhupada once met some devotees, they brought a Hindu professor, and he was a professor of Hinduism. So they brought him to meet with Prabhupada, and he started talking something about Hinduism. He wanted to just, checkmate Prabhupada by asking some difficult questions. So he asked, Swamiji, what are your thoughts about Hinduism? Prabhupada said, you are professor of Hinduism, you tell. He said, no, Swamiji, you tell. I said, no, you first tell. So just to make Prabhupada speak, he said, Swamiji, I don't know what is Hinduism. Prabhupada turned to Brahmanand Prabhu. He said, he is saying he doesn't know what he is teaching. What do you call such person? Brahmanand Prabhu said, cheater, Prabhupada. So Prabhupada turned toward this professor and said, he is calling you a cheater. And then there was a great argument. There was a great argument between Prabhupada and this professor. And ultimately, he became so upset, so irritated and frustrated. He said, at least I'm an honest cheater. So, that's how people are. They are cheating. That is also Jiva himself. And then puja, lava, pratishtha, adi, the desire for name, fame, prestige, that is very deadly. Raghunath Das Goswami describes Jadera Pratishtha, Shukarera Vishtha. What is the prestige of this world? It is like the stool of a hog. Stool is already obnoxious, but stool of a hog. Because what generally when people eat, they eat nice things, and then the stool is very obnoxious. But the pig eats that obnoxious thing. So what can be the stool of a hog? Jadera Pratishtha, Shukarera Vishtha. So it is very, very dangerous in the path of devotional service. So Prabhupada writes, sometimes the weeds and the creeper, they look alike. Very, very important. In the path of devotional service, when we start getting some name, fame, prestige, respect, one may start thinking, this is the result of my devotional service. There is no problem in that. We may take it as the result of our bhakti. We may take it as the outcome of our bhakti lata. But they are not bhakti lata outcome, they are creepers. When one starts expecting name and fame will come. But if we start expecting it, because they look similar many times. All these things, they look similar. So they may be of the same size, they may be of the same species, same color. One should be very careful. They are upashaka. they will take away all the nourishment. They'll take away all the water. And our Shravan and Kirtan will be nourishing that Upashakha. By our hearing and chanting, what we are doing is we are nourishing that weed. Because, oh, I am such a nice devotee, I am chanting nicely, and people are giving me respect. That is the result of devotional service. If we start taking this as the parameter of success, that means we are using our hearing and chanting to nourish our Bhakti Lata beach, Bhakti Lata creeper. So, a pure devotee should be very careful to distinguish between the creeper and the weed. Otherwise, the weeds sometimes they grow so wildly that they take away all the nourishment and the actual seed dries up, actual creeper dries up. सेक जल पाइया उप शाखा बड़ी आए स्तब्ध हैया मूल शाखा बड़ी ते न आए. If we are not careful, Seka Jalapaya, our hearing and chanting will nourish our Upashaka. Upashaka Badiya hai. And Stabdhaya Mula Shaka. And the Mula Shaka, the actual seed, actual creeper of devotional service will become choked up. But so Prabhupada writes, if one chants Hare Krishna while committing offenses, then these unwanted creepers will grow. It is very, very dangerous. We have to be really careful about avoiding these 10 offenses in our chanting the names of the Lord. Otherwise, our weeds will grow. We will nourish our weeds by our hearing and chanting if we are not careful, if we are not carefully avoiding offenses. And the root of all offenses is inattentive chanting. That is the mother of all offenses. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. That is the mother of all offenses. We have to be really careful. Prabhupada writes, if one hears and chants without trying to give up offenses, then one's hearing and chanting makes one materially attracted. One becomes attached to sense gratification if one is not careful. It is so very dangerous. Prabhupada quotes Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Exactly, he writes, if one hears and chants without trying to give up the offenses, one becomes materially attached to sense gratification. And this attachment to sense gratification manifests in 14 ways. Prabhupada writes that in the purport. How this attachment to sense gratification can manifest. One can start developing the mentality of Mayavadis, freedom from material bondage. Or one can start developing mentality of yogis, attachment to siddhis. Siddhis means anything which attracts people. That is siddhi. If I'm attached to doing something which will attract people, I want to speak in a way that will attract people. I want to sing, I want to manage, I want to do whatever things just to attract attention. That is siddhi. That means our inattentive chanting has increased our attachment to sense gratification. Thirdly, he says one becomes crooked or diplomatic in his behavior. That is third way in which the sense gratification can manifest. Crooked and diplomatic behavior. Fourthly, one becomes attracted to opposite gender and illicit affairs. Fifthly, he says, one makes a show of devotional service, like Prakrita Sahajiyas. I'm making a show, but I'm maintaining some sinful desires. Or, he says, sixth, one may try to support his philosophy by joining some other caste. by some other sect. That is also deviation. If some people they leave because they have certain type of philosophy and they think, oh, this Krishna consciousness movement can't support my philosophy. I will join some other philosophy, some other sect. This is due to inattentive chanting. These are very, very grave things. Or one may support the family tradition and become a pseudo guru, not following the actual principles of bhakti. Eighth, he says one may get again attached to the four sinful activities: meat eating, gambling, illicit affairs, and intoxication. Ninth is very, very important. He says one may consider a Vaishnava to be belonging to a particular caste or a creed. Oh, this is a Hindu Vaishnava, American Vaishnava, African Vaishnava. Yeah, he is an Indian Vaishnava. Oh, he's an Indian Guru. He is an American Guru. That is due to offenses, inattentive chanting, or offenses, 10 offenses, one of them. 10th, he says, one may try to carry out this chanting of Hare Krishna as a professional means. Professional reciters of Bhagavatam, professional Kirtanyas. That is a result of inattentive chanting. Professional Kirtanya, I want to get some material benefits out of it. One may try to increase his monetary strength by illegal means. One may start behaving in a sinful way also by this inattentive chanting. One may become a cheap Vaishnava. He will try to show as if he is such a great Vaishnava by remaining in seclusion and making a show that I am chanting so many rounds. 13th, he says, one may desire mundane reputation by making compromises with non-devotees. He will, he will manipulate his philosophy. He'll manipulate his spiritual life just to get some mundane reputation of this world. And 14th, he says, one may become the supporter of the hereditary caste systems, Jataka signs. So all these are very, very scary things. I should be very, very careful not to, to try to avoid all these 10 offenses against the holy names. And as soon as an intelligent devotee, he finds out there is a weed growing, immediately uproot it. Then only the Bhaktilata creeper will grow nicely and return back home, back to Bharat. So that's how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he describes this growth of Bhaktilata Beach. We'll continue that in the next class. We'll stop here. Hare Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami ki jai.